Good morning, friends. Today I am going to discuss about the uh, uh, duopoly model. In fact, this is one of the last model which we discussed in this category of market structure. This is because we had already discussed about the Cournot case and veteran case in earlier uh, and discussion, and of course this particular one is so important that that's what the leader follower model gets its own primacy in the oligopolistic market structure. So welcome all to this discussion. So let me set the basic setting of the leader follower case. At least you need two firms to choose quantity of output, which is in fact as the single homogeneous output. That is what we are going to discuss about. So in that context, both firms knows the market demand curve, and the first firm able to choose the first, and it announces an output level at the first instance. This is very important because, as the title suggests, this particular model is always talks about one moves first and the other moves subsequently. So it's not a simultaneous behavior in that sense. It's actually sequential in that sense. So we had already discussed this difference, especially under the game theoretic framework, where the behavior of the firms has been or have been discussed very thoroughly. So that lecture may help you to understand what I am telling today. So this two firms, basically the two firms then most knowing the announced output of firm 1, the second firm in fact, not two, the second firm, and the firm first know the direction of the second firm. So this is how it has been basically set, and so it can be used to reaction as a menu for choosing its own output. In that sense, it's very crucial because now you have only two firms, and then one out of that one firm is the leader, or what you call the first mover, and based on the first mover this output level, the second mover basically follow his action in that sense. Therefore, even the first mover also know that what would be the behavior of the second mover in that sense. So this is something about the leader follower model uh, setting. So let us look into the details of it. So first firm, that is the leader, no firm second's reaction if firm 1 produces a Q1 quantity, and then firm 2 produces a C2 of Q1 quantity. Now this is actually the kind of situation in they both are, and firm 1 uses chi-square as a feasible constraint for its own action in that sense, and the building in the constraints firm first profits are given by PQ1 plus chi-square Q1 times Q1 minus C1 Q1 in that sense. So in the linear case firm 2's reaction curve, especially firms 2's reaction curve function is actually Q2, which is equal to A minus C square divided by 2B minus 1 by 2 of Q1. So this is actually the firm's first profit curve, which is pretty standard in that sense. So A minus B Q1 plus A minus C by 2Q 2B minus 1 by 2 of Q1 is what is actually the first part of the situation, and times Q1 is the first part of the situation. If you minus that with your C01 plus C1 Q1, which is nothing but the second firm's quantity and the product in that sense. So this is what is actually given in the first instance as we discussed. Now if you have this, then simplifying the expression for firm first profit, we have actually 1 by 2 of A plus C square minus BQ1 times Q1 minus C01 plus C1 Q1. So this is what is actually the cost, the quantity, the production, basically the production function in that sense. The reaction function, what you call it, as actually a response function in that sense of basically quantity. This quantity is also is actually dependable quantity each other. So that means A produces based on also the expected direction of B. In this case, instead of A, what we call one from one, expect even for its quantity, the kind of response from the second form, and vice versa. So there is a kind of though there is a kind of sequentiality, but there is actually a clear anticipation of the behavior in that sense. So this is actually the price leader or follower model envisages in that sense. So the total understanding in that sense is actually you can have with the supply of first firm, which depends on a plus c square minus 2c1 by 2b. So using the second reaction function to find q square, that is we get the second firm's quantity in that sense is actually a plus 2c1 minus 3c2 by 4b. This is actually every subsequent period how much output you are going to be produced. That is also depends on the expected behavior of each firms in each stage. Suppose that is what we start with. In the beginning, that is the first instance, if I wish to basically produce something, then I may fix a quantity. Being me the first mover, what I do is actually I expect that if I produce this much of thing, then this much of cost will come. So I'll produce a quantity. The second mover is being myself is the leader. Then the second firm follow that that firm has already been produced this much. Therefore, my quantity would be actually having a lesser market in that sense, because you cannot simply say that there is a clear uh, complete, because the first mover is already been supplied at the first instance. So naturally the quantity may be bought from them would be higher. So being a supplier, or even the producer being a supplier, what he or she do is actually they have a expectation of the remaining portion of the market. That is, their target is to capture the remaining portion of the market. So that is what is actually this whole. So in the second level, what we try to say is the following, that you know the initial portion of the market being captured by the quantity being produced by this two firm, and in the second level the remaining for the first mover, again those if he or she finds that this much of uh, demand is there in the market, then naturally the supply accordingly. That is actually the second sort of intervention. And then the remaining, this is actually a kind of sequential move, and the market functions accordingly in that sense. So this is what is actually lead follower model, and the total, if you want to actually see that how much quantity been produced by first firm and second firm over the long run market equilibria, then you can say that actually the summation of those two or three different production phase will give them the total quantity of that. This is actually again assumes that the firm have the same cost function in that sense. So take the previous expression for the leader follower output. Same I have already said, the QS1 is equal to A plus C square minus 2C1 by 2B, and the other firm's case is actually A plus 2C1 minus 3C2 by 2B. So put C1 and C2, then you will get the total C. Then we get the following output, that is QS of A minus A minus C by 2B, and QS2 is actually A minus C of 4B. So this is how you are going to basically add your market share in total. So then you can say that who is actually the leader, who is the follower in that sense. Now, this is as I said, or as I started saying, This is about a quantity model. Now quantity matters in that sense. So now both firms cost is going to be one and the same, because their cost is, as we said, the cost function is going to be one and the same in this case. The first person has advantage because he has, or he, he moved first instance itself. So again, if you look into the demand curve, market price for 1 by 4 A plus 3C. That is, so the profit is also basically going to depend upon the quantity they been produced. Because given that their cost is given, now naturally it is quite clear that the quantity, the profitability, the total profit of that firm is depends on the quantity which they are going to sell in the market, in that sense. So if a larger firm has higher quantity, then naturally they do have a higher profitability in that sense. So that is how been depicted in this particular diagram. See, look at this thing, and you have actually different reaction, counter reactions based on the leader follower instance or sequence. And now that is immediately gives you that one firm is having a higher quantity being supplied than the other firm. Okay, so now the other firm can also, the second firm can also be a leader, depending on, then the whole things get reversed. All right, the output would be actually now supplied higher by the second firm than the first firm. So it is actually counterintuitive in that sense. Now, comparing the model, that is, the price competition model may seems more natural in that sense, but the outcome, that is P is equal to MC, is surely at variance with everyday experience. Now, this is why there are, of course, naturally people would be asking that why there is a quantity model as well as a price model in this case. No, quite simple and straightforward answer is what we said now, because every day it will be reflective in terms of price than quantity, but still quantity can also be, especially suppose if it is basically on perishable commodity like a fish supply or vegetables. If only two producers are there, then naturally all this response is actually going to be important, because if for example you are being a cultivator, if you are both had similar sort of cost function in that sense, then being myself as the first person to cut the say spinach, then I'll go and sell. The other person will also cut the spinach, but he or she won't be cutting as much as I am doing. Okay, in the T1 instance. So I know that actually, if the market is so plenty, that is, the demand is higher or plenty, then I can actually cut the same amount. In that, then there is no leader follower. Then what happens if the other person's complete spinach is over? Then I'll become the. Then I have something left. So in the T2 period, I will be the supply. It's all possible, from the agrarian example or with the industrial example. We can actually come out with this kind of simple thing. This is actually based on the quantity supply in that sense, whereas the regular mode is actually price variations. You have a higher price, then people will be giving more quantity. If the price gets slashed, then your response is actually not that positive, because your profitability is going to be affected by that. So these two models always works in a duopolistic structure. To evaluate the quantity based model, we need to compare the quantity outcome of the three versions and compare the profit attained in each case in that sense. So now output under a different regime, we can simply present with the help of this straight line, the perfect reaction curve of two firms. Like now in this case, you have a purple line, then you have a blue line and a green line. Now what this is going to do with this is definitely going to have an effect in the thing, that is, you have quantity, you have of two firms, and now QC is actually the equilibrium of one kind. Then the corner solution case, you also have a QM or you also have a QM on the other side, either A supplies or B supplies in that sense. Okay, so then the entire market can be served by either of them, or together if they supply, then if it is a perfect reaction, because we said with no discrepancy and all, then they can actually supply a QC case, otherwise they can have an undersupply of it. Okay, so now these are the possible joint profit maximization with the equal output, Cournot-Nash equilibrium, leader followers, Stackelberg equilibrium, everything is given. Now, Cournot equilibrium is what is actually the thing which we have already seen, that is C, where you have actually QC is the result, which we have already discussed in the Cournot case. Whereas we have also looked into the Stackelberg case, where you have actually a kind of quantity M, which is maybe supplied purely by one firm, that is one firm can actually supply the entire thing, or they can share. If they share, then the relative profitability would be lesser in that sense, but the other case would be higher. Now all this is what is called the Stackelberg leader follower example in that sense. Okay, so which one is better? No, let's decide that later. But of course, we know that the Cournot case is a saddle point case of Nash. Then it is interesting because uh, if it is a finite game, a finite kind of a move, then somewhere or the other you have to reach an equilibrium stability, and that stability is what is called a Cournot stability or equilibrium. Then you can say that that is the best possible response in a non-cooperative situation. Otherwise, you will be ending up with a better thing, but I don't know. All right, so Stackelberg, which one is better? I think research, there are so many arguments which is supports Cournot's. There are some argument which also supports Stackelberg case. So I'm not going to take any part of it, and of course it is up to you people to decide which side you want to research on, etc. Okay, so this is how we can move on. With this, let me conclude today's lecture, and of course in the whole discussion of market structure. So thank you so much for listening, and be patient with it, and we will see the lecture in the next semester, which will be more elaborate and more interesting in that sense. It is not actually less interesting indeed. So thank you so much for watching as well as promoting, and if you can, please share the videos to your friends and fellow learners, which will actually improve or reach out my kind of understanding. So please help me with comments and kind of response if you can. You can very well mail me and things like that. With this, let me stop the semester's lecture on microeconomics. Thank you so much.